When you do the vocal backing on those records, of course, you get credit for it. Most of the time, it's either on the album or on the single record itself. Vocal group, the Jordanaires. Well, we've been on more recordings than any other vocal group in the world, and reason being is we've had the good fortune of working with all of the many great recording artists, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
The Jordanaires are well known to radio and record listeners, familiar to TV and film audiences also, because they've been singing backup for at least 30 years. This is Lynn Folk for Tennessee Kaleidoscope with Gordon Stoker, who sings first tenor in this award-winning quartet. The Jordanaires did the backup vocals for Elvis Presley for 15 years, beginning with his first hit in 1956. They arranged the music for all of the Elvis movies and were seen and heard in many of them. They've done films with other stars also, and appeared on the big TV network shows with stars like Eddie Arnold, Arthur Godfrey Talent Show, Johnny Carson, Tennessee Ernie Ford, Frank Sinatra, Milton Berle, Ed Sullivan, Steve Allen, Steve Lawrence. And for many years they run the Grand Ole Opry. But even though their voices have been heard on some 30 to 50 million records sold each year, they've never had a hit record of their own.
We've had one or two that's been in the top 10, but we never really tried to have hit records because we knew that if we had a hit record, it would take us out of the background field. We were told many, many years ago from Lee Gillette of Capitol Records, he said, boys, if you want to stay in the background field doing vocal backing on records will be good to you if you stay in it. If you have a hit record, it'll take you out of it. You have to go on the road and promote that record. You have to go on the road and constantly play dates to promote it. And if you want to stay at home with your families, stay in the background field and it'll be good to you. And you believe he gave me that information some 25 or 30 years ago, and believe me, he was so right.
Has all this recording been done here in Nashville?
No. A lot of recording that we do is on the coast, and in some recordings done in New York. But the biggest majority of it's been done here in Nashville. We actually were the most sought-after vocal group in the world for about, I'd say, 20 years. By that I mean we did anywhere from 3 to 4 recording sessions a day, 5 to 6 days a week. A lot of people will ask us, didn't your voice get tired? And yes, we had substitutes. Actually, the Jordanaires are made up of 4 male singers, and a lot of times we had women's voices. We used women's voices in with us on many, many recordings. But the Jordanaires are made up of 4 male voices, and then when one guy takes a vacation or something, we bring in a substitute. And we've also had all the good fortune of being the same personnel since the early 50s. And Ray Walker is the bass singer, Neil Matthews is the second tenor singer, and Hart Hawkins was with us till about 3 years ago, and he passed away 3 years ago. And he sang the baritone, and I'm Gordon Stoker, and I sing the first tenor. But, of course, we had a substitute that filled in for Hart for some 15 years when he would take his vacations and when he would take a leave or anything like that. And so when Hart passed away, well, we just continued to use his substitute.
Are you all from Nashville?
Only one of us was born in Nashville. Shall we say we're all from Tennessee, but only one, Neil Matthews, was the only voice part that was born in Nashville. I'm from West Tennessee, and the other guys from West Tennessee.
How did you happen to get together? And tell me a little of the history of the Jordanaires.
We kind of grew up together, and we grew up more or less to singing. We started singing at a very early age, kind of together, that type of thing. Hart Hawkins and I did, and then Neil Matthews started singing with us, and just one thing led to another, and before we knew it, we was forming a quartet, and before we knew it was in demand to sing, and we started singing. We won the Grand Ole Opry 13 years. We joined the Grand Ole Opry in about 1951 or 52, somewhere along in there. And then we did TV shows with Eddie Arnold, and we've just had a great, fantastic career. We've thoroughly enjoyed it.
If you were all from different places, how did you happen to get together and start singing together?
We were all living in Nashville. I came to Nashville to go to school, and the others more or less did the same thing. From that way, we got together and started singing.
What about awards that you've received?
We've had several different awards, but we don't really think of it that way. We just enjoyed singing, and we were thankful that we got to sing with all the big names in the recording business.
Big names that hold special memories for Gordon Stoker and the Jordanaires. Names like Elvis Presley, Marty Robbins, Buddy Holly, Jim Reeves, Patsy Cline, Rick Nelson. And after 30 years, the Jordanaires are still singing with top recording artists. This program, Tennessee Kaleidoscope, made possible with the joint support of the National Endowment for the Arts, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the WPLN Educational Foundation. This is Lynn Folk. This is Lynn Folk reporting from Nashville, Tennessee. Elvis Presley has been a legend since his first RCA recording, Heartbreak Hotel, in 1956. The Jordanaires were his backup group on the record, and after that session, Elvis made an agreement with Gordon Stoker, leader of the Jordanaires.
He said, if there's anything from this session that is a success, I want you guys to work with me from now on. Well, we didn't think too much about it, but Heartbreak Hotel absolutely swept the country overnight. And as a result of just a verbal agreement like that, the Jordanaires worked with Elvis for 15 years. And those years were good years. We had a lot of fun. He was a very exciting person on the sessions. We did 28 movies with him. We appeared in a lot of the movies, but we did the soundtracks for all of them.
Elvis, under the management of Colonel Tom Parker, catapulted from an obscure Memphis, Tennessee truck driver who sang a little to one of the most influential and controversial entertainers in the world. He was often referred to as the King and sometimes called Elvis the Pelvis because of his rhythmic gyrations on stage, which caused audiences to squeal and screech. He was born in Tupelo, Mississippi on January 8, 1935, moving to Memphis with his family when he was 13. He died in Memphis August 16, 1977. And his home there, Graceland, is now a tourist attraction where his fans put flowers on his grave. They come to see his flamboyant costumes, his fancy cars, and his private jetliner named for his daughter Lisa Marie. His jewelry and his trophies are there, along with the largest collection of gold and platinum records ever earned by any recording artist. Graceland Mansion was purchased by Elvis to be a home for his parents. Later, he and his wife Priscilla lived there in a marriage that didn't last. From his greatest triumphs to the beginnings of his decline, the Jordanaires witnessed the Elvis magic, his effect on audiences, and even on reporters at press conferences.
A lot of times we'd talk with them before they'd see Elvis, and they'd say, well, you know, I'm very fascinated with him, but he doesn't mean that much to me. And about that time, Elvis would walk in and they'd freeze and couldn't speak, couldn't ask their questions. We've had women to faint.
And you saw him then on the stage, of course, and when he was throwing articles of clothing.
He'd always tell us, look at those people over there, or look at that girl, or look at this, that, and the other. One time he turned around to us and he said, you know, I bet if I burped, they'd squeal. And so what did he do? He turned back around and burped into the microphone, and they squealed all over the place. But he always felt the show was in the audience, not on the stage. But I can assure you that if you ever saw Elvis on a personal appearance, no one could hold a light to Elvis Presley. He was the greatest entertainer that ever walked on the stage. After you saw Elvis in a concert, the others just didn't even rate at all.
He had a long career where he was really successful.
Disc jockeys will call me and say, what do you think is the reason that his musical career has lasted as long as it's lasted? For instance, one disc jockey just called me just recently from Boston, and he was playing All Shook Up. I said, that record that you're playing right now in the background, All Shook Up, was done 30 years ago. Now, what record could you play that's 30 years old and sound as though it were made yesterday? He said, you're exactly right. And I said, this is the reason I think Elvis's music has stayed with us as long as it stayed with us, and I think it will continue to be with us because his music sounds as fresh as if it were just done yesterday.
What would you say his greatest contribution to American music would be?
Putting out music that is entertaining and refreshing. Each song has a message in it of love. His music is never tiring. He always had a fresh beat, and it was always refreshing to hear a record by Elvis Presley.
He sang a lot of different kinds of music, too,
Yes,
didn't
and he could sing all types of music and make you enjoy it because he loved it.
Now, he was the first of the rock singers, was he not?
There was other people that came along before he did, but Elvis was the first one that came along that maybe gave it a little class. In the early days, they said he was vulgar with his movements and all that. Elvis certainly wasn't vulgar-minded, and certainly not in those days, and he would never have ever done anything that he thought was vulgar before the public. We appeared on the Ed Sullivan shows, the 3 Ed Sullivan shows we did with him. They always made sure they didn't shoot him from the waist down because they thought his movements were vulgar.
Why did he do the movement?
He was brought up in the Church of God, and they move when they sing. You know, everything was with a beat. And Elvis just could not sing a song that had a beat to it and not move his body.
What kind of vocal training did he have, or what kind of voice did he have?
Well, I think he had a great voice. He always thought he couldn't sing. You know, he said, man, I can't sing, I can't do it. Why do they want me? He couldn't read music. He never had any music training. He never had any dance lessons or anything like that. He was born with just a desire to sing and to make music, and that's really what he wanted to do. And we'd sing all night long. He never got tired of singing. We would be worn out from singing, and he would still want to go. Many times we've gone down to Graceland and sang all night long. And we'd say, "Oh my Lord, how much longer are we going to have to do this?" Among ourselves. Yeah. And he'd want to sing another song, and here we'd go again.
What he was at the first, and then how he was at the last. What was responsible for the change?
Elvis was an easygoing guy. He didn't want the demands of Colonel Parker and the demands of RCA and the demands of the fan clubs. He never managed his money, so just one thing led to another. Elvis was always insanely jealous. He was jealous of people that were better looking than he was, and if he thought they could sing better than he was also jealous of them. And this, built up inside of him. Many people have called us and asked about the drug scene. He was on prescribed drugs. I never called him a drug addict or anything like that because he wasn't. It was on prescribed drugs, but that, along with the fact that he did not eat regular meals. I was with Elvis 15 years and never saw him eat a good meal. And when you don't eat and you take all those prescribed drugs, they're going to do a lot of damage to your body, and that's exactly what happened to him.
And so all of that accumulated, and that's what led to his death.
Plus the fact that he became very, very concerned about record sales. He became extremely concerned about his financial state. And he also became very concerned about Priscilla, if his marriage was going to continue. He always felt that she had eyes for somebody else. Taking prescribed drugs can make you think things that aren't really going on. And this is what eventually drove him to no desire to live, so to speak.
When Elvis Presley died in 1977, he was 42 years old. This is Lynn Polk in Nashville, Tennessee, where Elvis made a lot of his recordings.